When you think of GTA 6, your brain instantly goes to the neon skyscrapers and exotic cars of Vice City. But a massive city doesn't mean anything if the rest of the map is just empty space to fly a helicopter over. What Rockstar is actually building here is an interconnected state where the rules completely change depending on your location. You've got a tropical boat smuggling playground of the Leonida Keys, the lawless, untamed wetlands of the Grass Rivers, the corrupt industrial corporate vibe of Ambrosia, and you also have the rundown economy of Port Gellhorn. And then all the way up north, you've got the off-grid wilderness of Mount Calaga National Park. Instead of looking at all these regions piece by piece, today we're putting it all into one definitive corner-to-corner map guide so you can see exactly how the local economies, factions, and cultures of all these regions work across the state. So let's start with a screenshot of downtown Vice City, and this shot is honestly like one of the ones that made me go like, wow, they are not messing around. I'm pretty sure we got this screenshot pretty early into GTA 6's marketing cycle, and this is one of the first ones of, the city at night where it's like, oh wow, like this city looks insane. So if you look in the middle there, you have an arena, which in game is called the Sahara Arena, and this is home of the basketball team, and it's clearly based off Kaseya Center, the actual arena where the Miami Heat play in, and Miami, host events like concerts and such. And the name's just a perfect Rockstar like satire, right? Sahara is essentially their Amazon in this game. And so this is essentially the Amazon Stadium, but in the GTA universe, which is a pretty cool nod. But the arena is not even really the coolest thing going on in this picture. The clutter in front of it, that's the Vice City Arts Center. And from what we can see in the image, they built a whole performing arts complex. It's got a concert hall, a ballet opera house, and a tower, a footbridge connecting two halves of it across the street. And yeah, this is another example of just one of those buildings that's going to make their take on modern day Miami feel that much more real. They built like a whole symphony hall. Going through all these screenshots, it's the thing I come back to a lot. Most open worlds, will give you a downtown of just a lot of tall glass that you drive past and can't enter, but Rockstar's putting actual culture down here, stuff to do that has nothing to do with shooting anybody or crime. And that's that jump that Red Dead 2 had, that it seems it's going to show up in this, version of modern day Miami in GTA 6. So the world will exist whether you're there causing crime and chaos or not. Now down to the water in this game and the beach. And right away, the first thing we can see is just how absolutely packed it is. In GTA 5, the beach was kind of just like there. You could walk on it, you could obviously go in the water, but there wasn't much to actually do on the beach. It was just space. But in this game, it does look to be different. There's crowds, umbrellas, the jet skis are all over, lifeguard towers, some guy out there with a metal detector, elderly tourists. It's got everything in its own life, going on. So here we have Ocean Beach, which clearly looks to be Rockstar's take on Ocean Drive, Miami, South Beach. And as you can see, the cop cars read Vice Beach. The hotels have their own signs. We have the Dominion, the Ocean View. And the Ocean View one's actually a nice touch. That was Tommy's first safe house back in 2002, and they rebuilt it for this game. But as you can see, supercars lined up, super neon, deco hotels right on the sand. This is going to be a hub for sure. I'd put money on that, whether it's single player or online. People are going to hang here, spend time here. They're going to have businesses, nightlife, cars here. It's the spot. And we already know from the Ultimate Edition information that there's a garage here you can grab with a weapon locker and a drop for local fence baked in. So even the beach has that stolen goods GTA economy already baked into it. And that's just from information we've been given by Rockstar, which isn't that much. Here's the bigger thing this is telling me though, is that water in this game is a priority. And I don't think that was ever really true before in GTA 5. Obviously they nailed driving, they nailed flying, whether it's the jets and the oppressor in GTA 5, but water was kind of an afterthought. And this one, I can believe from what we can tell from the marketing, it is definitely a priority. For example, Jason literally starts out in the Keys with a house on the water. The Ultimate Edition hands you a boat and a kayak right away. There are underwater screenshots stuffed with sea life. And the city itself, just like in real life, is split by a channel. Beach on one side and the downtown inland on the other, exactly like the real thing. So we'll circle back to the water, but the water is certainly going to be a priority. And so I think the beach in itself is going to be more of a location that matters in this game versus GTA 5, for example. So now getting into density and the different neighborhoods. So you look around for just a quick second, you can tell this isn't just another street. You've got dirt bikes going through the intersection, obviously. You've got these massive murals covering nearly every support column of the highway. You've got Caribbean looking storefronts. You've got tons of graffiti and palm trees squeezed below the highway. It really does have its own culture and personality. And if you look at these, the graffiti on the columns, you'll notice they spell out Pearl. And I'm hoping I'm saying that right. And it's pretty clear that this is their take on Miami's Little Haiti. That's not confirmed, that's just me guessing, but it's clear that they're really putting care and attention into these distinct neighborhoods and giving them their own identities and cultures, which I think will help so much with making the world feel truly alive and like it exists beyond you just, doing your crimes. And that's something that I think will be a meaningful step up from GTA 5 and has me excited to see the rest of the neighborhoods. I mean, you also have this screenshot, which also appears to be from La Pearl. If you look at the man on the left's chest, it does look like it spells out P-E-R-L-E, which is obviously Pearl for La Pearl. And again, this is just another example of how these neighborhoods are going to have culture and identity. You've got the grills, the jewelry, the tattoos, the bandanas, the hairstyles. Nothing here feels like out of place. Like this all feels cohesive and that neighborhood. And that's the difference that this game's going to have from GTA 5. They're building these, cultures and identities and neighborhoods. And that's not to say GTA 5 didn't have neighborhoods, but they just look like they're going to be even more fleshed out and even more, like their own little hubs in this game versus how they felt in that game where it's just like one or two little streets and boom, that's your neighborhood, And so that's why I think the map size thing isn't a huge deal. Like, give me a city with distinct neighborhoods and vibes like this rather than, a huge big empty map. And I think Rockstar is going to nail that. Speaking of distinct neighborhoods, this one's already appearing to be my favorite. And this one's got lowriders, a donk on big chrome rims with a 23 in the window, art everywhere, warehouse walls. This appears to be Stockyard, which is going to be what appears to be the game's take on Wynwood, which is kind of the car culture art district part of real Miami. Rockstar showed a whole car meet here in the first trailer, and it looks like we have a lot new confirmed locations here from the pre-order information. So we have Electric Fang, which is the tattoo shop, and that's confirmed to be in Stockyard. And we also have a streetwear store called Stock 305, which is also confirmed in Stockyard. There's also a custom shop called Rideout Customs that turns regular cars into lowriders. Full interiors, lifted stance, all of that. And this one's confirmed to be in Vice City. And if I had to bet, it's going to be right here. The logic's simple. This is the art and car district, with that exact kind of aesthetic. So it'd be a little weird not to put the lowrider shop anywhere but here, especially when you factor in the previously mentioned gameplay image that showed all the lowriders in an arty looking district. But that's just my guess. That's not anything confirmed from Rockstar. And I'll just be honest, like, I love customizing cars in these games. It's one of my favorite things to do in the GTA games. So if you have a whole district in the game that's going to be built around car culture and art and shops clustered all together, that's where I'm going to live. Whether it's in single player or online, this is going to be the spot for me. I really hope that the game, has more depth to the single player businesses as well, and we can actually build an empire. And we have even more stores itself we can walk into. Because, for GTA 5, as massive as it was, it did kind of come up short there. There really wasn't that many interiors and stores you could really go into. Red Dead 2 was a little bit better. Obviously, it's a little different because it's not, a whole downtown city. It's $18.99, so it's a little different. But I hope that we see more of that in GTA 6 and more integral buildings and stores. So, yeah, but overall, I mean, this district looks sick. I love the aesthetic, and it's somewhere I expect to be a lot. Speaking of Stockyard, I did want to go into the specifics on this specific store called Electric Fang Tattoo. So this is the actual description on the Ultimate Edition that confirmed to us the neighborhood name of Stockyard. So on this tattoo shop itself, it's called Electric Fang. It's got 50-something designs, and it's all done by a real-world art collective. And it's the little touches and things like that is what makes Rockstar such a good developer and why GTA 6 is going to have such an alive feeling, immersive world. Obviously, they probably could have done that way easier than getting, 50 real designs, but stuff like that is what really makes it feel that much more real. But this is what actually gave us the name Stockyard of this neighborhood. And then you had Stock 305, the streetwear shop as well. And this was just on a pre-order page on the Ultimate Edition information, right? And so there's a lot of players that wouldn't even read this and wouldn't even know. But if you do read this stuff, you kind of can start mapping and visualizing the world in your head. You kind of see all these descriptions. You understand where the gangs are, where the car culture is, what bay should you go to fish, what's the activities we're doing. You kind of can get an idea of the map and kind of visualize it in your head just from reading these descriptions. And it's just cool to see. So let's take a step back for a second because it's easy to lose the plot. Everything that I've shown you so far is the downtown. It's got its own arts complex, the beach, the Haitian Quarter, the car district we just talked about. All of that is just one city. This is all within the Vice City region itself. And remember, this is just one of 6 regions among the Leonida Keys, the Grass Rivers, the Mount Calaga, Port Gellhorn, and Ambarosa. That's 6 total regions. So, and this is just Vice City specifically. So when I say this game's going to have density, like that's what I mean. This region alone has all these neighborhoods. So just let that sit in for a quick second. So here's the side of Vice City that the beat shots don't really show you. So there's this gang called the PTT Youngins, and their compounds in Southside Vice City. which, going off the name and the look, I believe this is more of the inner city, the actual inland, grittier city side away from the beach area. Rockstar describes them as one of the loudest, most socially active gangs in the city, and they're growing premium hydroponics in places they really shouldn't be. And there's a whole mission around them where you raid a compound, grab the contraband, get out. And that phrase, socially active, is really interesting. Like, why would they choose that phrasing specifically? And given that the game's marketing has leaned so heavily on social media and things like influencers, my theory is that this gang is socially active in social media. And I believe that you'll be able to go on social media and maybe find leads for robberies and leads for missions, right? A flashy gang posting their stash, or like a target flexing online. And that gives you radiant, like, live active robberies that you can take that are, nothing to do with the game. And just to be clear, that's complete speculation, zero confirmation at all on that. That is just me putting the pieces together a little bit. It would be a cool system, but again, just speculation. So moving on to the strip club called Jack of Hearts. And this is the strip club that's owned by Booby Ike. And Booby Ike's a character that we've been confirmed about and we know about. And he's kind of a perfect Vice City character. On the surface, he's a legit businessman, right? He's got the club, he's got a recording studio, he's, running legit businesses. But underneath, he's a criminal, plain and simple. The business is the front. I do think that this strip club is going to serve as a hub for us, given how much Booby Ike has been emphasized as a character that we're going to interact with, and the Jack of Hearts location has been. I think it will be similar to how GTA 5 was, where you'll be showing up for missions here and working with the people here, and this will be a hub for us during the game. Whether that's early game or mid game, I'm not sure, but you're definitely going to work for Booby at some point, and this will serve as a hub. I'm sure on that. And that right there is kind of the whole Vice City fantasy, right? Like, it's got the neon lights on the surface, but then you got the illicit businesses running everything underneath. And Rockstar is clearly wiring those two worlds together so that it all interconnects and feels one and the same. And that's a really cool version that they're building. All right, so I told you we'd come back to the water, and I'm really convinced that water is a priority for Rockstar this time. So as I mentioned, GTA 5 nailed driving and it nailed the flying aspects. However, water kind of felt at sometimes like an afterthought. But in this game, it seems to be a real focus. So starting with the boat, the Shih Tzu Squallow. It's confirmed that it's docked at a place called Washington Beach, and it's also set up for fishing in a bay called Gambit Bay, and that's from their official descriptions from the Ultimate Edition. And you also have screenshots of Jason fishing as well. So that's three things right there that show us they have different bays for boats, they have fishing, you're literally getting boats as part of the Ultimate Edition, as well as a kayak. So clearly water and traversal is clearly important for this game. Then you also have the port, which Rockstar straight up calls this port the cruise ship capital of the world, which is probably accurate to real life. And looking at the scale, you have the cranes, the cargo ship, the marina stuffed with boats. Like, that's a port with lots of boat activity. Water is everywhere in this game. So Jason, as we've talked about, starts in the Keys, which is the Florida Keys, basically a string of islands floating in the ocean. On top of that, the grass rivers are swampland, half water, literally by definition. The city's cut in two by a channel. In the trailers and what we know about characters as well as screenshots, you can pretty clearly see that boat smuggling is going to be in the game via Brian Heder. We can see from some trailers his little boatyard or boat dock area kind of being used as like a smuggling front sort of thing, it looks like. And like I've said before, Rockstar's had driving and flying figured out, and water was the gap. And the fact that they're closing the gap there this time really shows that this game's going to have all three methods of traversal figured out. Whether it's fishing, smuggling, diving, or just cruising the bay at sunset, it's going to be a really cool part of the game. So we'll see. So all together, we've got the beach, we've got the downtown with the art scene, we've got, the Haitian neighborhood that's got the graffiti, we've got the car district that I want to move into already. We've got gangs and grow houses and the strip club that's hiding in Criminal Empire, water literally everywhere you look. And that's just one of the 6 regions, not all of the 6 regions. And that's kind of why the size argument and the size thing isn't a big deal to me. I mean, bigger is great, but it's not, the end goal. The end goal is having a dense, livable world that we can, probably exist in regards to, gaming for a decade or more, the same way GTA 5 was. So the more alive and dense it is, the better. And I think Rockstar is going to nail this. To understand the Keys as an area, we first need to understand the people that actually live out here, because the local demographic kind of tells you everything that you need to know. So this right here is Jason Duval. He's one of our 2 main protagonists. And in my opinion, this shot right here is one of the more perfect introductions to his whole character. He's completely passed out on the couch in the dead middle of the afternoon. He's got his beers, he's got his controller, he's living the dream, honestly. But there's a massive catch. Rockstar's official biography form is incredibly telling. It basically boils down to one single line. He wants a completely easy life, but things just keep getting harder. And I love that because it's so simple. He wasn't a guy that grew up in the high-rise luxury of Vice City. He grew up right there in the Keys, surrounded by local grifters, small-time crooks, and con artists. He actually did a brief stint in the army as well to try and shake off his troubled teenage years, but the second that he got out, he got pulled right back down to the Keys, doing the only real thing that he actually knows how to do, which is running contraband for local drug runners. And that right there is the entire Keys region in a nutshell. The postcard description that we mentioned earlier that tries to sell the place as his laid-back, easygoing tropical paradise, where the dress code is casual and the local bars are always packed, but underneath the surface, there's more going on. That exact tension between wanting a slow and easy life and constantly getting dragged into, the dangerous, chaotic situations that he will, is the core of Jason's character, and it's a core design philosophy behind this region itself. And this is going to matter a lot for how the game opens up, so let's get into it. So let's start at home base. This is Jason's current home as we know it at the start of the game. The specific island that this house is sitting on is called Key Linto, and it's located right in Mariana County. If we look at the house itself, we can see it's built up on stilts to protect it from storm surges, obviously as it's on the beach. And we can see parked underneath it, and this is from the Ultimate Edition screenshots, there's an orange muscle car, a dirt bike, and a kayak. Here's the thing though, is that this technically is not Jason's house. It's actually owned by an older guy named Brian Heder, who we're definitely going to talk about in a second. And Jason is essentially just living there completely rent-free in exchange for doing his shakedowns. The rest of Key Linto looks exactly like this. It's pretty much a sprawl of modest, sun-faded waterfront homes where people have boat docks instead of traditional driveways. There are boats and docks absolutely everywhere, and the incredibly clear blue water is very present. It is the absolute polar opposite of the Vice City skyline. The neon chaos, the massive skyscrapers, the traffic, everything like that. It's none of that. It's just hot, slow. It's an isolated island community where everyone knows everyone. And I'm telling you right now, the deliberate slowness is going to be the entire point of why we are starting in this region. All right, so let's talk about the dude who actually owns the house, Brian Heder. So this older dude right here is honestly already one of my favorite side characters that Rockstar has shown off so far. And the reason for that is because he's a classic, old school drug runner from what they call the golden age of smuggling out in the Keys. The massive shark tattoo that's on his arm isn't just a random thing either. It's a direct nod to his official character bio. Rockstar describes him as a guy who looks like a total lazy Leonida beach bum on the outside, but he moves like a patient great white shark when there's money on the line. He runs a local business called Brian's Boatworks and Marina, which he manages alongside his third wife, Lori. Brian has a quote that you can find on the GTA 6 website where he's essentially bragging to Jason about the old days, claiming he used to haul so much weed through the islands back in the 80s that he could have made the entire state of Leonida straight up levitate. Like, that kind of tells you everything you need to know about his energy. He's kind of that legendary semi-retired smuggler who's pretty much stepped back from the highly dangerous hands-on part, and he's delegating it to Jason and using younger, capable guys like him to do his heavy lifting. And here is where the heavy lifting is actually happening. On paper, Brian's Boatworks looks like a pretty legitimate, slightly run-down boat repair shop. But obviously, it's probably going to be a front. We've already seen official footage of Jason loading crates of contraband onto the back of a seaplane at this exact marina under the cover of night. And that brings us to this guy right here, and this is the guy on lookout with the binoculars, which is Cal Hampton. According to Rockstar, Cal is Jason's incredibly paranoid conspiracy theorist buddy who essentially spends his entire day sitting on a couch at home, drinking beers, and intensely snooping on local Coast Guard radio frequencies. Now, for a small-time smuggling crew, that's actually a pretty valuable asset. A guy who's constantly listening to the Coast Guard encrypted comms is the guy who can tell you when a specific stretch of the water is going to be clear to make a midnight smuggling run. So it's not just going to be a funny, eccentric background character on the couch. That's a pretty built-in early game mission radar system that's right there for us in plain sight. It's the sort of organic world building that makes Rockstar World so exciting. Now that we have the characters out of the way, which were important to get through as they are probably going to be crucial to the early game of GTA 6, we can get onto these specific locations we know within the Keys itself. So let's start with this next location, which is the Rusty Anchor. So as we can see, it's a local dive bar that's located right in the heart of Key Linto, and its official slogan in-game is "Soak your troubles at the Rusty Anchor." It appears to be heavily modeled after a legendary real-world spot down in Key Largo called the Caribbean Club. But the thing that absolutely blows my mind about this is how Rockstar is approaching the map. They didn't just build a super pretty exterior for you to drive past. The inside of the Rusty Anchor is fully enterable and incredibly detailed. The walls are completely covered in real-world looking license plates, and there's working TVs playing local news broadcasts, and they even have posters taped up for local indie bands that perform at their bar. We've even seen official media of Jason and Lucia just sitting out on the wooden back deck of the bar with a couple of beers, completely ignoring the crime lifestyle for a second to just watch the sunset. And that stuff like that really does make the world feel alive. And the entire island surrounding this bar is just constantly doing its own thing, completely independent of whether you, the player, are showing up to look at it or if you're not. You have a full-on gator-themed mini golf course down the road, you have the Wonder Whale gift shop selling ridiculous tropical trinkets, and you have wildlife completely integrated into the suburban traffic. And this is where that massive generational leap from Red Dead Redemption 2 is really going to show. Because instead of applying it to the rugged Wild West, they're now applying it to a sleepy, eccentric, modern-day Florida coastal town. The world isn't just sitting stagnant, waiting for you to walk up and trigger their animations and cutscenes. It feels like a genuinely alive, sweaty, lived-in Florida town. And I'll be real with you, that level of micro detail and density is something that's going to take this game from being just okay to being an amazing lived-in world the same way Red Dead Redemption 2 was. Let's take a quick step back for just a second, because after looking at all this detail, it could be easy to lose perspective on the scale of what we're dealing with here. Everything I've just spent the last minute showing you, from the characters, the stilt house, the smuggling aspects, the fully detailed bar, and everything like that, all of that is existing within one single region. One region out of the 6 that Rockstar has officially confirmed for us, which includes Vice City, the Leonida Keys, the Grass Rivers, Mount Calaga, Port Gellhorn, and Amberosa. 6 massive, culturally distinct regions. So the fact that they built a localized area this deeply detailed tells us the scale of this game. This is probably going to be geographically one of the smaller regions of the entire map, so the scale is pretty insane. And that realization is going to lead directly into the biggest narrative theory that I wanted to present in this video. So after going through all the details that Rockstar has given us, I am personally pretty highly convinced that the Leonida Keys are exactly where the story of GTA 6 will actually begin for us. And I don't mean like a quick 5-minute tutorial mission thing where you rob a gas station and boom, you're in Vice City. Like, I mean, this will be a substantial chunk of gameplay to start the game, like the first few opening hours of the campaign. So let me stack up the actual evidence for why I think this makes sense. And like I said, I'll be clear about what's confirmed and what's just my personal read and speculation. So fact number 1 is that Jason lives here. His established backstory, his current employment, and his home base currently are all in the local smuggling ring that's completely rooted in the Keys. Fact number 2 is that in the footage from trailer 2, we see Jason driving out to pick Lucia up from the Leonida Penitentiary. And then we also see footage of Lucia and Jason together at his house in the Keys. So I'm thinking the game will start with you doing some early missions as Jason, eventually you're picking up Lucia, and start the early first bit of the game in the Keys together. So you have both main characters, your initial vehicles, your primary safe house, and your first major employer in-game in Brian. And you also have your built-in kind of buddy in Cal, all packed tightly into one calm, self-contained, isolated starting region. To me, like, that isn't a coincidence. I think that's pretty clear, like, this is going to be the opening act of the game. Now, the next part is just my personal theory, but I believe Rockstar is doing this entirely on purpose for pacing purposes. They want you to start somewhere that's smaller, open, relatively slow, so you can take your time learning the core mechanics of the game. Whether it's, the revised driving physics or the new boating controls, the gunplay, how civilian AI reacts and is different in this game. Because I just think that if they just unleashed you into the absolute overwhelming chaos of Vice City to start the game, it would be overwhelming and just so much to start with. If you've played Red Dead Redemption 2, you know exactly what this looks like. If you remember the snowy mountain prologue in Chapter 1 in Coulter, it's a quiet, contained chapter designed to teach you how to exist in the world before they let you into the free open world itself. And my major hope here, and this is where I'd push back on Rockstar's past design choices in Red Dead Redemption 2, is that I want the keys to be a lot more open and sandbox friendly than what the Red Dead Snow chapter was. So like, I don't want to be stuck just in the camp or in, my house and only being able to do missions. Like, I want it to be a little more open while still being contained to just the keys. Let me go rob a local convenience store, drive around, get in a boat, explore in the water. ignore the main story and go fishing for 3 hours if I want to. Like, give me the freedom of like a mini sandbox starting area, I think. Because here's the bold version of what I'm trying to convey, is that the keys don't exist to keep you away from Vice City, but they exist to make finally crossing that bridge and entering Vice City feel like a genuinely earned and like awesome moment. And I think a lot of people are seriously underrating this island and the keys as just like a, you know, smaller starting zone where Jason lives. But like, this is literally going to, in my opinion, be the on-ramp for the entire game. And it will be kind of that calmer, sweatier, and more grounded take on Florida that will make you feel like Jason, and this is like that easy life that they've mentioned in the marketing before you get into the chaos of Vice City. So if you remember how I mentioned early in the video that Rockstar said that the Leonida Keys is going to be a very beautiful area, but also a very dangerous area, well, this is where that kind of pays off, and it's in the water. So if we look at this underwater shot, like you can see like they have fully realized ecosystems down here, whether it's sea turtles or coral reefs or, you know, eels or whatever type of tropical fish, right? Like whatever type of thing it is, they've got full underwater, you know, things going on. And they've been pretty clear that there's genuine danger in the water. Even GTA 5 had sea animals that could attack you, and Red Dead Redemption 2 had a really built out wildlife system with alligators and bears and things that could really attack you and kill you. So I'm expecting that this game will probably have more of the same. Now, obviously in Miami in modern day, which will be great. But yeah, up on the surface as well, the water's just as active. You have sandbar boat parties. What I'm expecting to be deep fishing mechanics that build upon Red Dead Redemption 2's fishing. And then you also have these massive bridges that are connecting all the islands that are clearly modeled after the real life bridges that connect the keys. And here's why this matters way beyond just this one region. If we're being completely honest, Rockstar has nailed land vehicles and driving physics and all of that, right? They also did a great job, at least in my opinion, with the aviation and flying mechanics in GTA 5. But and also in my opinion, GTA 5 water was clearly a weak spot. Driving on boats wasn't fun, and you really didn't have much reason to go in the water and engage with the beaches. But it feels like with us starting in the Keys, they've really built this entire region taking water mechanics completely seriously, whether it's, you know, going to be how the boats handle or having like boat smuggling mechanics or now the underwater environments. I think that the Keys are going to make water a focus and something that we'll see more of in this game, given how crucial it is to Miami and obviously Vice City in the game. So whether it's, you know, navigating the narrow canals of the city or going through the swamps of the grass rivers or running the smuggling operations in the open ocean, like I think water will be important. So putting it all together, we've got a quiet stilt house that's sitting on a pretty slow island, a legendary retired smuggler that's running a sketchy boatyard, and a paranoid friend listening in on the Coast Guard. We also have the pop-in local dive bar, stunning coral reefs, and then just the slow, you know, demographic and life that makes up this region. And I'm convinced that this is where our GTA 6 journey will kick off. The bright neon lights and skyscrapers of Vice City are always going to get 90% of our attention throughout the game anyway, and they deserve it. And the city looks amazing, but this grounded kind of, you know, starting area will be the foundation for GTA 6 and makes the neon lights actually really feel like something once you get there. Understand the grass rivers as a region. We got to strip away the guesswork and just look at the info that Rockstar has given us. They aren't treating this as transitional flyover territory or just like the empty wilderness zone. In their own official breakdown of the state's regions, they explicitly refer to this region as the untamable jewel of Leonida's crown. So they're calling this big swamp wetland area the jewel. That's pretty strong wording for an area that appears to just be a swamp and wetland, right? Geographically, this area anchors the southwestern part of the map to the west of Vice City. It serves as a massive wild expanse that's the connective tissue between Vice City, the downtown skyscrapers and neon of that, and the smaller county towns like Port Gellhorn or Ambrosia. I think one of the main things that this region will offer, though, is just the different pace that it offers. Compared to Vice City or even the smaller county towns or even the Leonida Keys, this will be a region that's unlike anywhere else on the map, with just miles of raw, unpaved nature. For example, you can go from the hyper-dense Vice City with supercars everywhere and neon lights to miles of raw nature where your standard sports car is essentially just useless and you're going to need an airboat or very specific off-road vehicles. It's a design choice that will give the map a great sense of scale and force you to step out of the fast cars and into the rugged terrain of the grass rivers. Moving on from the wildlife and the swamp in general, let's talk about the laws of the area. Because Rockstar's built an entire faction specifically for gators, and it seems this region as well. Enter Poach, P-O-A-C-H. And that stands for Protection of Animals and Controlled Hunting. This appears to be Rockstar's parody of real-world state conservation enforcement. And based on the official footage that we have, Poach doesn't appear to just be a passive logo on a billboard. It seems that they're a fully active, aggressive law enforcement faction within the world, and we can see that in some of the pictures and trailer footage that we have. They've got their own dedicated vehicle fleets, with squad trucks, tactical airboats, and aviation units. And if you commit a crime out here, you might not just be dealing with your standard cops, but rather a specialized task force that knows exactly how to navigate the swampy terrain. They even have their own in-universe social media presence as well, posting warnings to stay alert for uninvited guests before pool parties, where you can see they're pulling a gator out of a pool. But if you look beneath just the surface, Rockstar's official description for the region says that gators are the famous danger out there. However, they also say there are far deadlier predators and weirder discoveries hiding in the swamps. I think that this deadlier predator they're referring to is definitely humans that are running stuff in the swamps. Like, for example, take this frame for example. That's not a wildlife rescue. This is a black market smuggling operation in progress. Poach exists to give the Grass Rivers flavor and support illicit underground economies that have absolutely nothing to do with Vice City or the Leonida Keys smuggling or those typical crimes. This is a different, local, gritty, backwoods animal trafficking sort of thing. I think this is reasonable speculation given what we have from Rockstar. And to be clear, we don't know the exact gameplay loop here. We don't know if there's going to be poach missions yourself or if you can interrupt these. But from what we've seen, it does seem like something that could be in the game. The Grass Rivers is essentially going to be GTA 6's version of Sandy Shores. It's that dedicated rural area where all the city rules basically go out of the window, except instead of being in a desert this time, now it's going to be in a swamp. And this is also where the map shifts from being just the pretty nature backdrop to being more of a massive mechanical sandbox. Every major territory in this game appears to be getting its own unique culture, and that applies to their vehicles as well. Vice City has the neon and the supercars, the Keys have deep sea boats and smuggling cars, and the Grass Rivers is going to belong to mud and off-roading. For example, the car you see on the screen right now is the 67 Vapid Dominator buggy. Now, Rockstar confirmed that this is an Ultimate Edition vehicle, and it's built to handle off-road terrain, which would include swamps. It's not just the car that we're getting. It links directly to a property bonus called Paradise Garage, located out in a spot called Watson Bay. And that garage actually has real gameplay utility. You get a personal weapon locker and a physical stash box to drop off your illegal goods to be fenced. And that Watson Bay appears to be close to the Grass Rivers according to the community mapping project, but again, that's just speculation and nothing confirmed from Rockstar. And that leads me right into the next point, which is the other big off-roading spot that was confirmed with the Ultimate Edition, which is One-Eyed Willie's. Now, this is the official off-road custom mod shop where you go for specific off-road needs, just like this custom green truck that we can see. And according to Rockstar, this is located on Lake Leonida. Now, Lake Leonida is not directly inside the Grass Rivers. It appears to be a little further north, but close and adjacent to the Grass Rivers. So this will probably be a spot that we frequent given the muddy, swampy terrain of the Grass Rivers. And it proves that the rural side of GTA 6 isn't just going to be one big boring block of swamp and trees. Rockstar is dividing the state into all these distinct macrobiomes, whether it's the swamp or the country mountains of Mount Calaga. Obviously there's the city, and then there's the Leonida Keys as well. Each of these behave differently, have different terrain, and look differently. And when you connect all the regions together, they form a massive connected off-road ecosystem. And we know that this type of muddy culture is fully integrated into the game from footage we've seen of Trailer 1, where they showed us the Thrillbilly Mud Club. It appears to be a named faction based on the real-world Florida mud clubs, where thousands of people, and they'll take their trucks and ATVs and such and go mudding. Now, Rockstar could have left the swamp completely flat and empty with not much to do, but instead they gave it its own unique culture and lifestyle and activities to do. So let's take a quick step back for just a second, because when we look at all this specific detail in the region, it can be easy to lose perspective on the sheer scale of the map of GTA 6. Everything that I've spent the last few minutes showing you, from the poach enforcement to the black market alligator smuggling to the mud clubs to the off-road stuff, all of that is existing within the Grass Rivers. And that's just one region out of the 6 territories that Rockstar's officially confirmed, which consisted of Vice City, the Keys, the Grass Rivers, Mount Calaga, Port Gellhorn, and Ambrosia. 6 massive, distinct zones. So the fact that they built a localized area that's this swamp that's deeply detailed and mechanically rich, when it might honestly end up being one of the more geographically less populated regions on the entire map, that kind of tells you the scale that we can expect with this game. And look at this shot right here. As you can see, it's a town on the water on stilts with a tiny dock, maybe some local shops and dive bars. And notice how far away the Vice City city skyline is in the background. It's so distant that it barely registers on the horizon. And I think that specific atmosphere captures kind of the philosophy behind the grass rivers. This region is not going to be this like densely packed area like some of the other regions might be. It's not going to have storefronts and places to rob every 5 feet or crowds of pedestrians, whatever. It's intentionally sparse and less populated. But that doesn't mean empty. To me, the grass rivers are where GTA 6 will stop feeling like a city game and start feeling more like an exploration game. It uses isolation as a gameplay mechanic to make exploration feel much more rewarding and give that wilderness sort of angle that Vice City won't have. You don't need overwhelming density when every single structure is earning your curiosity by just existing there, you know what I mean? It forces you into like grounded exploration where you want to intentionally spend free roam sessions just exploring the region and letting your curiosity do the work instead of chasing a checklist of things to do and map markers. Remember how I mentioned earlier the warning about far deadlier predators hiding in the swamp? This is where that line might start to pay off. So let's look at this group for example. This isn't a family vacation and these aren't tourists taking photos for their socials. These are people who live, work, and bleed in the swamp. Let's look at some of the details here. You can see high-powered rifles resting casually against their legs, beer bottles scattered about, and a massive kill already secured on the deck of the airboat. They're completely comfortable, heavily armed, and entirely unbothered by the environment. Now, this is just my personal interpretation, but when you pair this imagery with the poach stuff that we mentioned earlier, you kind of start to see some of the interfactions of this region and how they might interact. The wildlife aren't the only threat here. The official descriptions heavily suggest that the greatest danger out here might just be the people itself. And this looks like that human element, and these might be the people that Poach is actively flying helicopters over the swamp to try and find. Rockstar excels at building worlds where two factions are already locked in a bitter, systemic war before a player even shows up. You saw it in Red Dead Redemption 2 with the rival gangs, we saw it in GTA 5 with the rival agencies, and it looks like we might even see it here in just the grass rivers itself. The local heavily armed swamp economy on one side and aggressive specialized wildlife state enforcement on the other. And you as a player are likely going to be dropped right into the middle of that tension. So when we string it all together, you have a live, functioning wildlife enforcement sandbox with its own dedicated tactical fleet and living ecosystem and people that live there as well. It looks like the grass rivers could feature pretty good off-roading as well, with a whole motorsport culture built around it, airboats, and it appears to be populated by an isolated local economy that is actively warring with the state itself. The grass rivers might end up being one of the most memorable regions in all of GTA 6. And it's not because it's dense like Vice City or packed with endless amounts of content, but because every single discovery feels completely intentional. The bright neon lights and the massive skyscrapers of Vice Cities are always going to get 90% of the attention. And they deserve it. But this grounded take on the Everglades and wilderness is the exact foundation that makes the city feel that much more special. So looking at what Rockstar has actually put on their website word for word. Wild, wild country. Room to breathe on the state's northern fringes. A national landmark up against the state's northern border, Mount Calaga offers prime hunting, fishing, and off-road trails. In the lush surrounding backwoods, hillbilly mystics and paranoid radicals live far from the prying eyes of the government. So breaking this down, they're making it clear that this will be a slower paced area. You know, room to breathe, right? They're not selling you on the high-speed shootouts of Ocean Beats and Vice City, they're selling you on the isolation of the area. They also explicitly let us know that Mount Calaga is on the northern border, with rugged forest canyons and riverways. According to GTA Wiki, the landscape of Mount Calaga National Park is largely based on that of Georgia and northern Florida, and specifically the Providence Canyon State Park, which is in southwest Georgia. Now, me personally, I'm really glad they chose to expand beyond just Florida itself for the terrain. I think having a mountain region alongside the Vice City and the swamp and the Leonida Keys and all the other regions we've discussed will be great. It will just offer that variety and wilderness, which should be great in this game, especially considering how well that was in Red Dead Redemption 2. Having this region confirmed, Rockstar's telling us that this isn't just going to be flat, swampy Florida. They are going to have terrain diversity and different areas to explore that really will make this feel like an entire state that they built in game beyond just Florida itself. While the geography and terrain of the place itself is great, a GTA map lives and dies by its culture, and the crowd living up around Mount Calaga actually seems quite interesting. If we go back to Rockstar's official descriptions of the area, they mention that the backwoods are home to hillbilly mystics and paranoid radicals living far from the prying eyes of the government. So this faction will be different from the most that we would encounter in GTA, like your corporate billionaires, street gangs, cops, everything like that. We're talking about off-grid, insulated communities that actively do not want to be found by other people. And this is honestly based in reality, right? If we're talking about the Florida man and, kind of the history of northern Florida and even southern Georgia, it's pretty accurate real life. Like, there's people that live like this out there. There's massive deep-rooted history of these kinds of people. And whether it's independent communities or, folk medicine believers or anti-government prepper types, there's people that just want to be left alone on their land and live out in the wilderness. So when we head up to Mount Calaga, we're not just visiting a joke region with a few funny NPCs that are like the Florida man. We're walking into a totally distinct lifestyle that does exist in reality. It's the absolute polar opposite of everything that Vice City is trying to be. Down there, it's all about showing off, having the great cars, the wealth, smuggling and everything like that. And up north, it's about survival and secrecy and staying off the grid. So we can't talk about heading into the wilderness without talking about how we're going to get around and how we're going to survive up there. And this is where the gameplay mechanics start to get potentially very, very interesting. When Rockstar dropped the details for the Ultimate Edition around a few weeks ago, they highlighted a specific vehicle called the 67 Vapid Dominator Buggy. They labeled it a Mud Club monster built specifically for the backwoods of Mount Calaga. But the biggest takeaway here isn't the buggy itself, it's the garage that we're keeping it in. The official info confirms that you store it at the Paradise Garage down in Watson Bay, and the garage explicitly features a weapon locker and a secure place to deposit stolen goods to be fenced. So why does a garage feature like that matter so much for how we use our cars? Because it essentially confirms that Rockstar is killing the old GTA 5 inventory system, where your character basically carries an entire arsenal, whether it's an RPG, AK-47, 4 different types of pistols, shotguns, melee weapons. The world where you're just carrying that in your back pocket is dead. It appears that vehicles in this game will potentially function how horses did in Red Dead 2, where you basically had to store your weapons and things on your horse and you couldn't just carry all your weapons at once. So your car is essentially going to become your mobile pack mule and your base of operations. You'll choose your specific loadout, pack your car, and your vehicle will carry it for you. You get stranded out in the woods and you don't have your car, you're just stuck with whatever you physically have at that moment. It injects a good survival element into Grand Theft Auto that we saw in Red Dead 2 was really successful, and it changes the pace a little bit, making it more of a literal expedition rather than just kind of doing whatever and less arcade. It also appears that Mount Calaga is clearly designed to be the definitive off-roading area of the map. Rockstar explicitly said in the details of the Mount Calaga location that it would have prime off-road trails, and when you combine that with the fact that this terrain is pulling from the rugged Georgia canyons, we're not talking about just flat dirt paths. We're talking about, huge canyons with elevation changes and river crossings. We can also take a look at how GTA 5 handled this. The story mode featured off-road races that you could do out in Blaine County, in the canyons and in the different off-roading sections. And while they were fun, they weren't really, anything crazy. It was just kind of driving regular cars over, just bumpy hills essentially. But this game, it looks like it's going to be a lot more distinct of an identity that the off-road driving will have. Like Mount Calaga specifically feels like it's catering to a completely dedicated off-road subculture. And we even saw that in trailer 1 with the Mud Club clip that we can see, that off-roading is going to have a culture in this game, and I think Mount Calaga is going to be a big part of that. And whether we're going through, the rivers and driving through the water even, or going through the red clay canyons, it's going to be an important part of this game. And on top of all this, we even have an auto shop specifically built for off-roading. So it's very clear from what we can see about the game so far that off-roading is going to be a more prominent element in this game. So looking at the bigger picture, something we should consider is why specifically would Rockstar spend so much time on canyons and hunting and gameplay loops such as that when, this is Grand Theft Auto? And to me, the answer is pretty simple. They've already spent years basically engineering the perfect gameplay loop for this gameplay style, whether it was hunting or hyper-realistic wildlife or dense forests and rivers and that sort of terrain. They did all of that in Red Dead Redemption 2 at a high level, and Red Dead 2 for me is honestly the best game of all time. So why would they not, try to employ those systems and gameplay elements from that game into this game? It's been 8 years since that game came out, and obviously things have progressed a lot since then, right? And let's think about it. Even after almost a decade since Red Dead 2 came out, the game's wilderness holds up today. The animal behavior and hunting systems hold up great for today. It has a real living, breathing world and ecosystems where predators will actually hunt prey, and this is completely independent of the player's intervention. And that's not even mentioning they also have great fishing mechanics as well that feels like a real dedicated simulator, not just something, bolted on. So To me, Mount Calaga is Rockstar's opportunity to take nearly a decade of knowledge from what they did in Red Dead 2 and drop it into the GTA setting, and I think that's what they're doing. Now, to be completely fair, I do want to keep my expectations grounded and in check. Obviously, all this is just kind of wishful thinking and not necessarily confirmed. While the region in itself is confirmed, as well as kayaking, fishing, hunting, and off-road trails, we don't know for sure how it will be in relation to what Red Dead 2 was. It's totally possible they build a slightly more streamlined version for a faster-paced GTA game and not as fleshed out as Red Dead 2. So we don't really know the exact answer, and we won't know until the game comes out. But what I do know is that we'll most likely have great world building, emergent systems, and Rockstar's just not a company that I'll bet against, So I'm excited to see it. I think it would also be helpful to take a step back and kind of analyze how GTA 5 handled this sort of region and lifestyle. So don't get me wrong, GTA did try its hand at having a great outdoors between Mount Chiliad, Raton Canyon, off-road races, and even little hunting side activities in the story mode that you could do with Cletus, right? But if we're being completely honest, the wilderness in GTA 5 always felt a little bit like an afterthought. They had this giant, beautiful, area and desert and mountains in the top half of the map just to give the world the scale, but realistically, it was a region that you visited once for a specific story mission or when you started Trevor's missions. Maybe you got on a dirt bike and went on the mountain or something, but for the most part, you kind of stuck in Los Santos. And I think in this game, they're giving it a little bit more intention, and I feel that Mount Calaga will be an overall stronger take on it than what it was in GTA 5. To me, it's not Rockstar going, hey, look, we threw some mountains in the back of the map. It feels like an entirely different culture and region, and a part of the game that you could just honestly exist or live in, right? It's essentially like a different genre of gameplay that's inside the same game that is GTA 6. It's not going to be a place that you'll just speed through to go somewhere else. It's a place you'll actively prepare for and really spend time in when you're there. But putting it all together, the actual point of Mount Calaga, what is the point of it? And why does Leonida need this massive northern wilderness? And the reason is because Vice City is just pure chaos and bright neon lights and bumper-to-bumper traffic and cars and supercars and the beach, between the crime, the noise, all that. If you spend 50 hours straight in that, it's going to burn you out. So this is great diversity for the map and great, terrain to have to go explore and do and find something different than Vice City in a downtown city, right? It's the game's freedom, recreation, and escape from Vice City in a way. It's not just another checklist of map markers. It's almost like a mental shift when you go there. The game will basically explicitly tell you to change your pace, go to your garage, pack your weapons, load up your car, and grab the kayak, for example, that we see in the Ultimate Edition, right? And just drive north until you're out in the wilderness and go explore, right? So it's got a lot of potential. The Grass Rivers region already showed us that Rockstar is focusing heavily on building distinct cultural identities for every single corner of this map, and not just changing the scenery for the sake of changing the scenery. And Mount Calaga might be the clearest, most exciting proof of that philosophy that we've seen so far. So with Rockstar, they're very intentional about the way that they build maps. They don't just throw random small towns out into the countryside because they need filler space between the major areas. A lot of open world games do that. They'll give you a massive map, but it's just empty roads and copy-pasted gas stations that really don't serve a purpose. Rockstar doesn't play that way. They understand if you want a city like Vice City to feel like a real functioning city, you have to have that unglamorous, gritty side of it and the industrial side that keeps places like that running and alive. And Vice City gets all the hype, which makes sense. It's got the sports cars, it's got the neon lights, the high rises, everything. Jason and Lucia are going to be there a lot. However, a massive metropolis like that doesn't just pop up out of nowhere. It needs power, it needs food, agriculture, and it needs that blue-collar engine that keeps it running in the background. Amber-Rosa appears to be that industrial engine. It's the exact part of the map that makes Leonida feel like a real American state that we can actually picture and have that realism factor instead of just a giant theme park like most open world games might feel. So let's look into where this county actually sits, the insane level of corporate corruption that's already baked into the lore, and why this town is most definitely going to serve as a major criminal hub once the story gets moving for us. So looking at where Amber-Rosa actually sits on the map, based on the community mapping project and the official promotional materials that we have, Amber-Rosa appears to be completely landlocked and not close to the ocean at all. It's sitting right on the southwestern bank of Lake Leonida, no ocean breeze and no palm trees, endless, flat agricultural land stretching out over the horizon. Rockstar has explicitly described the zone as the agricultural and industrial core of the entire state. And if you want to know what real-world location that they are pulling from here, it's pretty close to a Florida town called Clewiston, and I hope that I'm saying that right. So if you've never actually driven through interior Florida, It's pretty different from the Keys or Miami or any of the other big Florida towns like Orlando. Clewiston is a literal company town, meaning a massive corporation called US Sugar basically runs their entire economy, including local politics, the land, and everything like that. It seems pretty apparent to me, and also from the mapping project, that this appears to be the inspiration for Ambrosia. And Rockstar clearly just didn't guess what a farming community looks like. They found real life inspiration for this. They cloned the endless rows of sugarcane, the industrial smokestacks, and the feel and vibe and architecture of a town that's built around just one singular industrial function. Sugar farming in Florida also has a long, dark history of corporate dominance, environmental battles about pollution, and political power. So by choosing this setting, like, Rockstar is not just making a very generic small town industrial county. Like, they're pulling from real history in Florida, which hopefully will serve, within the actual story of the game. Which this brings us directly to the biggest landmark in the entire town, which is the Allied Crystal Sugar Refinery. The official materials from Rockstar confirm that this is a massive industrial complex and it's Ambrosia's largest employer. But it's this kind of corporate overreach that tells us the exact kind of town that Ambrosia is going to be. When we look closely at the official screenshots of Ambrosia, you can notice these subtle, creepy details in the background. The local yard signs for the upcoming election are actually visible in this picture with the bikers, and they featured the Allied Crystal corporate logo printed right next to the candidate's name. And the official slogan is plastered all over town, which is the sweet lifeblood of Ambrosia. So when a private agricultural company is putting its logo straight onto the political flyers and signs of a local politician, they're literally not even hiding the corruption. Allied Crystal literally just owns the local government here. And like the description says, they control the jobs, they control the land, and now we can tell from this picture that they are funding the people who are writing these laws. And knowing Rockstar, like, this isn't just background decoration that's just in there for whatever. Like, this is probably going to be a subplot or some sort of lore story that we see and come across in the game within this town. And there's a good chance maybe it could affect our gameplay. Like, for me, like, I would bet that Allied Crystal is probably going to be a massive source of mission threads at some point in the game for Jason and Lucia. Whether it's some corporate corruption stuff that we have to run jobs for, or a corporate monopoly running the town with zero government oversight, we're probably going to be doing the dirty work for them, I would imagine. Whether it's sabotaging rival transport trucks or burning down fields of crops like you can see in this picture, or manipulating stock prices, or whatever it is, this industrial complex will definitely be a source of high-paying, high-risk criminal work that we will come across, in my opinion. The corporations are only half the equation out in Ambrosia. You can't have a massive corporation exploiting a workforce without the heavy criminal underbelly filling that vacuum. And that's where the final chapter MC Biker Club comes in. So this is a local biker gang. If you look closely at the leather jackets that are worn by them in the official screenshots, their patches are dated all the way back to 1982. This means that they've been running operations and maybe in Ambrosia itself for over 40 years in game. In one specific trailer frame, we can see a member sporting an enforcer patch, which is a great detail because it tells us Rockstar is building legitimate, real factions and biker clubs rather than just going off vibes and generic names. But it's Rockstar's official line on the town that makes this really interesting. They wrote that while the Allied Crystal Refinery provides the jobs, the local biker gang provides almost everything else. So what specifically is everything else? Well, this is a massive piece of environmental storytelling. It means the legal economy goes to the corporation, even though that itself is completely illegal and corrupt. But the entire underground economy, which this is speculation, but maybe involves things like gambling, smuggling, narcotics, protection, black market, all of that belongs to the final chapter MC. It really does make it feel like Ambrosia is going to be this blue collar ecosystem where the workers are getting chewed up by the corporation during the day, and they spend their paychecks at businesses controlled by this outlaw motorcycle club at night. Stylistically, this clearly seems to be inspired by the Lost MC from GTA 4 and GTA 5, which, as you remember, is the biker club, and you kind of come across them in the GTA story throughout Trevor's story. To be clear, there's no confirmed connection to Liberty City or Los Santos, but the lineage is clearly there, and it's that raw, unglamorous side of GTA crime. As seen in Red Dead Redemption 2, this type of world building is where Rockstar really thrives. Think back to a place like Annesburg from Red Dead. Annesburg was this miserable coal mining town where the air was thick, the workers were dying, and the mining company owned all of the housing, the stores, and the local guards. Ambrosia feels like GTA 6's version of that town, except now it's the mid-2020s, and instead of coal, it's sugar. To me, this feels like Rockstar fixing one of the major flaws that GTA 5's countryside might have had. While GTA 5 tried to give a vibe like this with Sandy Shores, with the meth trailers, the desert heat, the biker tension, at least in my opinion, Sandy Shores never really felt like a real functioning town. It just felt like kind of desert. It kind of just felt like Trevor's desert town, which was very like low density and just not a ton going on, in all honesty. There wasn't really a real industry or major economic engine that held it together. It was just literally desert backdrop. But with Ambrosia, Rockstar is circling back to that rural outlaw concept, and they're applying that, experience they got from building the world of Red Dead Redemption 2, which again is one of the best open world games ever made. And it's really giving this town a reason to exist and fit within Vice City. And on top of all this, I think this really aligns with real world cities as well. A few months ago, I was traveling and I was going to New York, and I had stopped in Newark, New Jersey before I went to New York. And I think that this is kind of a reflection of how real world cities work, right? Like you have the super corporate and pretty New York City. In order for New York City itself to run, it needs that industrial backend, which Newark, New Jersey provides. Seeing Rockstar take inspiration from real world architecture and the way that cities work, and ensuring they have that realism that really makes their cities and worlds feel so alive is great to see. The average person that would visit Vice City in GTA 6 isn't going to think about the industrial town sitting, a few hours away. But the fact that Rockstar built it anyway just shows that they aren't just building a map that's like an arcade, like they're building a real living world. So I want to talk some pure gameplay speculation as well, based on the concrete details we have. So because Ambrosia is sitting right on the bank of Lake Leonida, the potential for water-based smuggling missions here is massive. We already saw airboats cutting through the swamps, and we know that boats are probably going to be pretty prominent in this game given how much water there is around Miami and in Florida in general. There's also another official screenshot that shows a field completely engulfed in flames with a crop duster flying overhead. We saw Rockstar perfect field burning mechanics all the way back in Red Dead 2 in their tobacco field missions. So seeing that tech brought into Vice City and GTA 6 means things like crop sabotage and kind of that, corporate dirty work that I mentioned earlier, right? So whether Jason and Lucia come to Ambrosia to lay low, or playing, doing the dirty work for the corporations here, or work with the biker gang and kind of the enforcers of the final chapter MC, this town has a ton of potential that I hope Rockstar realizes. At the end of the day, Rockstar didn't build Ambrosia to blow you away with the flashy neon lights of Vice City or crazy heist. They built it more for the realism, as well as unique gameplay that we can do in industrial areas with unique lore and things like the corporations and the biker gang. It's a region I'm definitely fascinated to explore and kind of see how they pull it off. Not because it's like beautiful or anything, but just because it should have unique gameplay and make it really feel like a more immersive, fully realized world as well. So the one thing Rockstar has made clear about Port Gelthorn is that the tourism economy is completely gone, but a new economy has taken up the mantle. So looking at how Rockstar officially described the location, they use specific phrasing. They said it's a place fueled by malt liquor, painkillers, and truck stop energy drinks. And they also explicitly talk about cheap motels and shut down roadside attractions that are never bringing tourists back. It's pretty easy to just write this off as just flavor text that Rockstar put, but knowing Rockstar, this probably really does matter for how the location feels in-game and how it might even work as well. I've driven through towns exactly like this in Florida, and if you've ever spent time in the rural South, past the coastal resorts and everything, there's a kind of specific kind of early 2000s decay that kind of hits you. Like for my generation, walking into towns like these that are former tourist areas isn't some retro charming piece of nostalgia. Like it kind of has this heavy, sad feel to it. With how this location looks, it looks like it'll be pretty dangerous too. Like it's the exact feeling of pulling into a strip mall where the only businesses open are like a pawn shop, a tobacco place, and a sketchy cash advance business. It's a gritty, hyper-specific vibe that's pretty hard to fake. And it seems that this is the sort of tone Rockstar is chasing here, like that abandoned, nostalgic, but not like in the great way sort of vibe, and not peak small town tourism. Like it's almost lawless in a way because this place has been completely abandoned. So that all being said, I actually think that this place, while it will take some inspiration, I don't think it's going to be Sandy Shores 2.0. On the surface, it seems like it might be, right? Rundown rural town, the drug themes, off-roading, trailer park sort of vibes. Like it seems like it could very much be a lot of like Sandy Shores. As I've mentioned in other region breakdowns, like Sandy Shores, the one thing it didn't really have, in my opinion, was like its own identity. Like it basically just existed to be Trevor's area, right? Like it was just desert trailer park, right? That was basically it. There wasn't a proper density or town to it or a real culture to it. It was just a desert backdrop for one of the main characters. Like if Trevor wasn't there blowing up meth labs or fighting the bikers or whatever it was, Sandy Shores was like this dead ghost town with not much going on. Port Gellhorn, to me, clearly from what we've seen from Rockstar, like has its own functioning ecosystem and real culture that's independent of Jason and Lucia and any of the main characters from the game. Like from official footage, we've seen pawn shops, local liquor spot, the Delight Strip Club. And then from the mapping project, we know that there's a local mall, a dirt raceway, a massive trailer park, public spaces like soccer fields and basketball courts. Like this will be much more than just 2 dirt roads and a single gas station. This will be a fully realized low-income town with its own nightlife, its own local economy, sports culture, recreational spaces. Like it's a real living place. And I think that is one of the main evolutions that GTA 6 is going to have versus GTA 5. I think that we can expect the world to feel more like how it did in Red Dead Redemption 2, where it's this truly alive, immersive world where there's not really any town that's just there to exist like they might in GTA 5. Like, no, this is going to be a fully realized, living, breathing world. And this is going to be that small town, low income angle that I'm excited to see. One of the cooler things that we do have concrete details on regarding Port Gellhorn is a side activity built around Wyman's World Auto Salvage. If we look at the breakdown for the official Ultimate Edition content, Rockstar confirms this isn't just a background business. This is a legit, full, progression-based side mission hub. They describe Wyman as an eccentric collector and local fixer. And your job is to go out into the world, track down, and restore abandoned classic cars scattered all over the state. Now, to be totally clear, Rockstar themselves has not explicitly confirmed where this is located. But according to rumors and stuff from the leaks and some of the different GTA 6 wiki sites, all the signs point directly to Port Gellhorn. There's also a funny rumor from those same leaks that Wyman is like this unhinged conspiracy guy. We'll have to see if Rockstar kept his specific personality like that. And based on the images we see of him, I think it's possible. But however, the actual car business part is 100% official and confirmed in the Ultimate Edition. Assuming that those rumors from the leaks hold true and that his shop is right here in Port Gellhorn, it completely changes how you might look at this region. This isn't just a place you might pass through once during a random chapter or mission of the story. It could become more of a functional home base for a major car-related side hustle, giving you a legitimate gameplay-driven reason to come back to this corner of the map to build up a classic car collection. When we look at what Rockstar has shown us of this area from the different trailers and the official screenshots, it paints a very vivid picture of low-level street crime and low-income areas type of crime. So not that GTA level, international drug cartels, military-grade hardware sort of thing. No, like this is going to be much more boots on the ground, low-level, whether it's like something like local liquor stores or rundown motels with fights breaking out in parking lots, or people hang out in the back of older sedans and, small scale weed farms, like stuff like that. Stuff like that is much more the vibe of Port Gellhorn than any of that crazy stuff that we might get into in Vice City and so on. Like this isn't a massive, criminal area with this ladder for you to climb. It feels like regular people just filling that economic gap however they can, because the town really, as it's abandoned, didn't really leave them any choices. And honestly, that lines up with what Rockstar has told us about the location. The economy's gone. They're running on painkillers and malt liquor. This isn't, a high-stakes, glamorous, neon, multi-million-dollar crime like Vice City and, maybe some of the other locations. This is, low-tier, survival-tier crime, just trying to get by and pay their bills. And this is really the only way they might know how. It's gritty, it's messy, and it completely matches the rundown energy of the Forgotten Coast. Getting into what this town might do for fun, there's one more massive piece of the puzzle that could completely define the local culture here, and we can spot it in the official trailers if we look closely. So in one of the quick cutscenes of Lucia, we can see that she's wearing a shirt that says Gellhorn International on it with a graphic of a race car on it. That confirms that this town is a race town, right? It's got a massive racing venue, which is seen in the mapping project. And it's this sprawling road course and drag strip complex, which appears to be inspired by Florida tracks like Sebring and Gainesville. Beyond this, though, if we look at official screenshots and stuff from the trailers, they have shown off muddy, intense dirt bike racing and quads tearing up rural tracks. And in the official description of Port Gellhorn, they mentioned dirt bikes. They said, quote, "Jump on a dirt bike and hold onto your wallet." So it seems that dirt bike racing might be an activity that we can do here as well, which is great. Racing is one of the most fun parts about GTA. We all love cars and customizing them and driving fast. So having racing be a more fleshed out identity for this game would be great. And if this offers, a dirt bike quad racing sort of mechanic, I think that'd be a lot of fun. And this also tells us that the motorsport culture here, as mentioned with the Wyman's car collection, this isn't the hyper polished multi-million-dollar supercars, and crazy stuff like that. This is going to be loud, caked in mud, classic, and embedded in the local community here. Whether it's local drag strips or dirt ovals or demolition derbies and backyard race sort of things, there's a lot that they can do here. As we've seen with the different off-road specific mod shops and stuff like the One-Eyed Wheelies, which Rockstar has confirmed, it seems that off-roading is going to be a very large part and identity of this game, and stuff like this completely changes how we might customize the vehicles and spend our time in the region. While you're in Vice City, you're going to buy your high-end supercars or lowriders. In a place like this, you're looking for, a mud buggy, car that's meant for drag racing, or, a dirt bike or ATV sort of thing. It gives the area a massive hobbyist culture that matches the raw do-it-yourself energy that matches how the economy is, which is also kind of a do-it-yourself economy that they figured out. So pretty cool there, in my opinion. So let's talk about the geography of Port Gellhorn just a little bit. So Port Gellhorn sits in Kelly County, tucked away on the western edge of the map. According to the mapping project and the official regional layouts, is directly below Mount Calaga to its north, and Amarosa and Lake Leonida are to its east. What that tells us, though, is that Port Gellhorn isn't just a coastal town sitting on a beach. It's right between a huge national park, a massive lake, and a nearby industrial town. And as we mentioned previously, Rockstar explicitly highlighted dirt bikes as one of the ways to navigate this specific area of the map and in Port Gellhorn's official description. So when you consider that Mount Calaga is nearby and that Amarosa is a biker country, this is clearly going to be more of an off-road terrain, dirt bike sort of situation here. And supercars and cars like that are not really something you're going to be using here. We're talking dirt trails, muddy, lakes and waterways, elevation changes from the mountain nearby. It's built around off-road, rugged, dirt bike mechanics sort of thing. So putting all of this together, my prediction for how Port Gellhorn will feel once we're playing the game, it's going to be one of the more busy but low income areas for emergent, unscripted sort of gameplay. This isn't the place where we're going to put those, crazy $1 million heists together, but it's going to be a place where you pull over at a gas station, get caught in the middle of like a stick up or something going on there, chase a guy down a dirt path on a quad bike or on an ATV, and you stumble into like an underground crazy garage with a fixer, right? Rockstar didn't build these 6 distinct regions just to give us a bigger map. They've given each of them their own identity, culture, and community, and Port Gellhorn is more of that. You've got the wealth of Vice City, you've got the industry of Amarosa, you've got Mount Calaga's wildlife. Port Gellhorn is that low-level, street-level crime that's more about survival than anything else. So that's the full breakdown of all 6 regions. Subscribe if you want to stay ahead of the game before launch, and let me know in the comments what region you're planning on hitting first. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.